Greetings ladies and gentlefish, and welcome to this pair of subscriber replays. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at British premium medium tanks, and we're going for two ends, two extremes of the spectrum if you will. We're going to kick off proceedings with Omnivion driving the Cromwell Berlin. This is the tier 6 British premium medium tank. It is to all intents and purposes a reskinned Cromwell that you can use whatever British medium crew you've got at the time in. I have one, and it's the reason I no longer own the regular Cromwell, because it seems a bit pointless having both. Having said that, when this machine came out, there were lots of cries of, "Oh my god, it's overpowered, blah 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 blah," which seemed a bit weird to me because this is so similar to the regular Cromwell that, well, there's essentially no difference. And I don't think the regular Cromwell is overpowered. And the calls of being overpowered mainly seem to come from people who were sticking to the, let's say, more traditional idea of premium tanks, that they should be nerfed, or they should be gimped in comparison to regular tanks at the same tier, which personally I don't think is necessarily true. I just don't think they should be, you know, they shouldn't be paid to win. As long as they're not that, I don't really care. That's just my personal opinion though. Your mileage may vary. Regardless, this is a very good machine, but not really any better than the regular Cromwell. If you like the regular Cromwell, you'll like this, and if you don't, then you won't. It's still got no armour. It's got the same gun. In fact, actually, on this tank, the gun is worse, as the bloom values got nerfed. It gets the the same stuff. The only way in which this is really better than the regular Cromwell is that I believe it gets better ground resistance values. But anyway, let's not worry too much about that.
Permission to engage.
So far Omnivion's done a little bit of damage here or there. Just to mention, this is a tier 6 match, of course, and Omnivion is on, is it Westfield? I think it's Westfield that it's called. So Omnivion's so far done a little bit of damage. He's come over here to the right hand flank, which it's relatively common to see light and medium tanks over here. Of course, Omnivion is in a medium tank, and in a lightly armoured medium tank at that. And when you combine that with the Cromwell's rather derpy gun, you know, you don't really want to get yourself into too many kind of snapshotty situations, because the Cromwell just does not snapshot particularly well.
That one didn't go through.
But otherwise the gun is pretty good. Wow, that was a bounce. You don't see them very often. You know, he's actually switching to APCR ammunition here to take on these guys. Personally, I think Omnivion would probably be better off just relocating. But that's my opinion. Your mileage may vary. And the APCR that Omnivion fires in this game, I mean, bear in mind that he's top tier. So, apart from when he's against that OI, it's probably not going to make a jot of difference. Assuming he goes against the OI, of course. Anyway, yes, Cromwell Berlin, regardless of whether you consider it balanced, overpowered, whatever, it's a good machine, whatever else you may think of it. Now, Omnivion's actually keeping the APCR loaded here. Personally, I wouldn't bother. T-34-85, you really don't need it. The only target, as I say, that you might want that APCR against is the OI, who is currently sitting up in B3. So, yeah, and even then, that's only if you engage him frontally. In the side, regular armor piercing will do the job nicely. Anyway, I was saying about the gun. Apart from the slightly derpy nature of it, you know, its aiming stats are not particularly good. It gets quite large bloom values. Apart from that, it's a good gun, whether it's on the regular Cromwell or whether it's on this. 145 penetration is good. 135 alpha damage for tier 6 is good. The rate of fire on it is good, and when you combine that with the alpha damage, the Cromwell actually gets really, really nice DPM, so you shred people very, very quickly. And the accuracy, fully aimed, dispersion 0.36, while it's not absolutely astounding, it's good enough to get the job done. And actually you can see here Omnivion has decided to switch back to regular armor piercing because, well, yeah, he doesn't need the APCR. It's just throwing credits down the drain at this point. Scoreline is 8-10. 8-11. As the friendly team as the friendly team continues to fall, 8-12. And the enemies are just not really dying. Now, Omnivian, he's done a bit so far. He's put some damage down. Damage down. Yes, he's doing this amazing thing called putting down the damage. It makes the enemy team more stupid and means that you win. No, he hasn't done that. But, oh, there goes the friendly artillery. He now has APCR loaded, and this is the guy you actually want to use APCR against. There we go. If anyone's wondering about why the aiming reticules seem to be a bit derpy there, well, what can I say? What replays tend to be a little bit on the derpy side. He's bounced another shot. It's very unusual to bounce shots in this tank, but so far he's managed to bounce 3 of them. If he keeps up at this rate, he'll equal my Bromwell steel wall, which is one of my proudest achievements. I mean, come on, let's be honest. Steel wall in a Bromwell is the equivalent of putting a piece of paper in front of a naval gun and watching the thing jam. Anyway, there goes the Wolverine for Omnivian's second kill. T-34 takes out the Stug 4. And there is the VK. Omnivian trying to get a shot, but he's not in the best position. Gun elevation fail, and he's having to relocate ever so slightly. At this point, Omnivian is the last tank remaining, as his T-34 buddy just died. So, this is really the crux of this replay. 1 versus 4. There was a close encounter of the artillery kind, shaving a bit of Omnivian's health off, but thankfully not direct hitting him, because that M44, that would have made a mess. So Omnivian has about half of his health remaining-ish, slightly less, but there or thereabouts. And rather than just engaging the guy, the VK, who was last spotted, and being where artillery wants him to be, and taking a whole bunch of 155mm shells to the face, he's deciding to relocate, and he's going after the artillery themselves, loading some high explosive in order to help him do so. The high explosive from this gun is okay. I mean, it's 75mm HE. There we go, a nice penetration. It's not bad. The problem is, if he'd loaded good old-fashioned armor piercing, then, to be fair, it still would probably have taken 3 shots to kill that M44. So, I mean, the HE is fine, providing you have the opportunity to aim it properly.
Let's locate another target.
So that's the M44 down. 1 more shot to take out the M41. There we go, nice blind shot. And that just leaves the Sherman 3 and the VK 3001P remaining, now without artillery support. So Omnivian can be a little bit more flexible with regard to where he engages these guys, and to give credit to the VK,
That one bounced.
the VK did come back to engage him. Now, VK 3001P does not have good armor.
Ricochet.
The only reason that Omnivian keeps bouncing on this guy is because he seems, I'm not sure if it's intentional, but a number of those shots were aimed at the front of the VK's turret, which is about the only bit of that tank that is capable of bouncing this gun. There's the Sherman from earlier on. It's a Sherman 3 though. Omnivian is firing APCR here, but he really doesn't need to. As you've already seen, APCR can still bounce if you're aiming for the wrong bits of the enemy tank, or hitting the wrong bits of the enemy tank, and your armor piercing would be perfectly capable of going through this guy anywhere else. Now here, Omnivian doesn't really have any shots other than the front of the turret. So in this case, I understand him firing the APCR, but the previous APCR rounds, not really necessary. And you could argue, in many cases, detrimental. The enemy VK is annoyed at Omnivian firing APCR, but the reality is it really doesn't make a jot of difference. Most of the time. Omnivian is just trying, I assume, to secure the damage, rather than getting an unlucky bounce and thinking maybe I should have switched to APCR instead and losing this match as a result. That would be my assumption. All the same, I'm pretty sure this this game would have exactly the same result, armor piercing or armor piercing composite rigid. You know, really wouldn't make much difference. So, the VK has now apparently come down to the lower ground, which is an interesting tactical decision. Generally speaking, the height advantage is a good advantage to try and keep hold of, but he appears to have decided that's not what he wants. And Omnivian has actually, he was spotted as he went up that hill, so he's gone round the other way, Hopefully, therefore, he can catch this VK unawares, take him roughly from behind, and this game will, with any luck, be over. It doesn't look like Omnivian has Sixth Sense in this replay, by the way, so he does have to be a little bit cautious. If that VK is using, and I don't think he is, but if he is using the short 88, then Omnivian is potentially a one-shot for him, 220 would be an exactly average damage roll from that gun. As it is, though, the VK is just looking the wrong way, and this is all a little bit embarrassing, except Omnivian's shot went into the guy's tracks. That shot could have been aimed a little bit better, if I'm going to be honest. But there we go. So, chase this fellow down. And hopefully... There we go. Now that was actually a little bit risky. As I said, if the guy was using the long 88, and we can see here that he's not, he was using the short 88, he's actually using the 75mm gun, but if he were using the 88mm gun, he could have put a shot into Omnivian as he came over the ridge and killed him. As it was, that wasn't the case anyway, and he became Omnivian's 6th kill. So, let's go and have a look at the post-battle results for this game. Alright then, that was for Omnivian worth First Class Mastery, Fire for Effect, Duelist, High Caliber, and Top Gun awards, which are nice to have. 2,205 damage done, 6 kills, 1,253 base experience. Can't have been too far off an ace tanker, but wasn't quite enough for it that time around. 35 shots fired, 25 hits, 21 pens. That's kind of the derpy nature of the gun for you. For that damage count, most of which was from relatively close range. Received 6 hits, of which 3 did not penetrate, which is really very lucky in that tank. For 355 damage blocked by Omnivian's armour. Had that damage not been blocked, Omnivian wouldn't have been able to have the game he did. 8 enemy vehicles damaged, 6 of them destroyed, a little bit of assistance damage, and travelled almost 5 kilometres. Now, this is where I would perhaps critique Omnivian's gameplay. 57,000 credits earned, but because he fired so much APCR, even with a premium account, he lost 19,000 credits with a premium tank and a premium account. I would say, overall, it was a good result, don't get me wrong, but I would say in many of the situations where their Omnivian was using APCR, he probably would have been better off just relocating and trying for a different engagement. The APCR fired there didn't really add anything to the game for Omnivian. The only tank it really would have made a difference against was versus the front of that OI, but that just wasn't an issue. He ended up killing the OI with an AP shot anyway, presumably through the side armor, I can't quite recall. Regardless, a nice amount of experience with a premium account and ×2 for the first win of the day and all of that jazz, over 4,000 of it, plus of course a chunk of that as free experience. So a nice result overall, and the Bromwell Berlin is a very nice tank to drive around in, so good job Omnivian for getting that. Now, let's move on to our second replay. Here we go with our second spot of British medium tank premium action then, and we've gone from one extreme to the other. The Bromwell Berlin is a very, very good machine at tier 6. Here we are with the decidedly less good Tier 8 FV4202P. It's the Prius. And this is a pretty dire machine, in my opinion, even after Wargaming buffed it. Now it's being driven for us today by Sumgrass, who is a very good player. He is platooned up with Nijneligin from the WS clan. Sumgrass is in Ideal, which is one of the best clans on the EU server cluster. And he is... Now the thing you're going to have to bear in mind is don't necessarily take the result from this game to be indicative of how the FV4202P is going to perform in every game. Sumgrass is one of those players who is able to shine a turd bright enough that you mistake it for a diamond. So he is here on Sand River. It's a tier 8 game, thus he is top tier. And already you can see the first problem with the FV4202P. It is slow. He managed to reach a mighty, 35 kilometers an hour going downhill. Getting here.
We didn't even scratch them.
And, well, that's just not really up to snuff for a medium tank, if we're going to be honest. And here is the second problem with this tank. The aiming stats on the gun are not too impressive. Neither is the fully aimed accuracy. Now, they're not terrible, but for the nature of this machine, they're not particularly great. And there you can see just a flat-out miss. The FV4202P is essentially a dedicated long-range hill sniper. The problem is, dedicated long-range hill snipers, generally speaking, require three things. Firstly, a good engine in order to allow you to navigate dodgy terrain, because you often tend to be using your gun depression an awful lot of the time. 2, good gun depression. And 3, an accurate gun. And of those 3, the FV4202 gets 1. It has 10 degrees of gun depression, which is pretty good. The engine power, however, leaves a lot to be desired. And the gun, while not completely terrible, is not particularly accurate. It's the 20-pounder B barrel. Now, there are two 20-pounders in the game on British tanks, the A barrel and the B barrel, the only difference between the two being the aiming stats and the rate of fire. So basically the B barrel gets a better accuracy and a better rate of fire. And this is called a B barrel, but really the stats on it are closer to the A barrel. Anyway, I'm waffling on about this tank far too much. Let's actually concentrate on what Sumgrass is managing to do. There's an enemy WZ who's chasing down his platoon mate, and so Sumgrass tries to take that WZ out, but the 4202P does not snapshot very well, so he's kind of foiled there. Now, he has had a bounce or two from this tank. This tank has a turret very similar to, goodbye Mr. WZ, to the Centurion Action 10 or Action X. Very similar style. And at tier 8, that's actually a pretty good turret to have. It's not completely impenetrable, but it's pretty decent. So that's something to be said in the 4202's favour. The penetration on the tank is also pretty decent. It's the 20-pounder gun after all, so what, 226 pen, 230 alpha damage, strictly speaking, is the lowest of any, or joint lowest of any tier 8 medium tank. But it's there or thereabouts. I mean, 230, 240, 250, they're pretty common values to have at tier 8. And it's not low enough to be a massive problem. And Sumgrass here is just doing what the 4202 needs to do. He is providing long-range fire for his team. And Sand River here is actually a pretty good map for the 4202. You know, hills, gun depression, all that jazz is what the 4202 lives for. And Sumgrass is managing to rack up a fairly respectable amount of damage from this position, without really moving very far, thankfully, because, well, as I already mentioned, the 4202, well, fast it is not. Anyway, this, of course, is actually an assault game, so there's only 10 minutes in total on this match, and the friendly team have to stop the enemy team from either killing them all or taking their base. And Sumgrass is providing supporting fire to his teammates for that. And this central position here, for an assault game, if you're on the defending team, is very powerful indeed. So I do recommend you trying to make use of it. However, it does seem to have rather, well, run out of usefulness at this point. So Sumgrass is coming down to reposition, to do something slightly different. Again, 4202, not the fastest tank in the world, so if you're going to do it, you want to do it sooner rather than later. And hello, there's a rather unfortunate Mark 6 Churchill. The 4202P may not be a fantastic tank, but it should be able to take out a tier 6 heavy. Certainly one that isn't an OI. So there we go. There's 3 shots in so far, and the Sturret Emil in the background finishes the Churchill off. Now, the turret armour on the 4202P is pretty good. The hull armour, not so much. There's a Tiger, and the Tiger has a friend, and there's a nice couple of bounces there for Sumgrass. Quick shot into the Tiger. More bounces going on. This turret can bounce a fair few shots under the right situations, and, well, it does appear that Sumgrass is getting a little bit lucky. Don't be fooled by the hull armour. It might be well angled, but it is well angled paper in my experience. Generally speaking, you can't expect it to hold up to much. Certainly not the big fat gun you tend to find on the ISU 152. So, there's that. But this is an awkward fight for the ISU, because, well, he doesn't have a turret, let's be honest, and is he using one of the 122s? Maybe, maybe not, can't quite make out. Yep, that's a 122mm gun. That would explain the bounce from him earlier on. It is not the big scary BL-10, so that's a little bit fortunate for Sumgrass. So Sumgrass is going to push his advantage, keep putting shots into him, but nonetheless Sumgrass still takes a big chunk of damage through the turret for his troubles. And there's a guy coming up behind him, so this is slightly awkward. KV-85 manages to miss his shot, and Sumgrass deals with him appropriately. Now you may notice, I mean, this tank gets a reasonable ammo stock, but Sumgrass is still running out of ammunition. He's down to 4 rounds of armor-piercing ammo, got 10 APCR and 5 HE. I'm not sure I would recommend taking as many as 5 HE rounds. 20 pounder HE ammo is not very good, but then again, I guess usually you don't fire a gun quite this much. 2 rounds of AP left. This Tiger over here should hopefully succumb to these 2 rounds, and in fact it doesn't take those 2 rounds. 1 round left, and hopefully he can find someone to put it into. Speaking of which, there's a T-34-100. Alright, let's go and do something about him. And there's the E-25 over here as well. Fan-dabby-tastic. So, Sumgrass just trying to find shots on these fellas. He has been spotted. T-34-100 gets taken out by the Hell Kitty. And that leaves this E-25. And Sumgrass hopefully can do something about him as he gets up to his astounding speed limit of 35 kilometers an hour. I'm sorry, I find it very difficult to watch this replay and not comment on the 4202's many, many failings. Anyway. E-25 and a Harrow. There we go. And now Sumgrass is down to firing APCR because, well, he's run out of armor-piercing ammo. He's fired the gun that much. There's another shot into the poor little E-25. And, oh, come on, cliff dive him, cliff dive him. Ah, sad face. But the E-25 flubs his shot. Seems to try and ram Sumgrass, which is an interesting tactic. And Sumgrass turns him into kill number 5. And that is the game. 1 minute 25 left on the clock. And Sumgrass's team have successfully defended their side of the map. So, Sumgrass obviously fired the gun an awful lot that game. I'm curious about exactly how much. Let's find out in the post-battle stats. Well, here we go, and it doesn't take a genius to work out that that was quite a good result. First mark of excellence for Sumgrass, as well as an Ace Tanker award, Hand of God, Spotter, Bruiser, Duelist, Fire for Effect, Fighter, Shell-Proof, Confederate High Caliber, and the Tank Sniper awards. That's quite a nice haul of medals. And if we actually order this result, you can see that Sumgrass clearly came top of his team with 6,636 damage done. That would be a good result in a tier 10 game, let alone a tier 8, and in what is generally considered a pretty bad tier 8 at that. 5 kills, 1,998 base experience. That's not including premium account or anything else. That is 1,998, almost 2,000 base experience. It's quite a lot. 38 shots fired, 33 hits, 31 penetrations for that damage count. Surprisingly, he got the Tank Sniper award, i.e. for doing most damage at long range, despite having done most of that, almost 7,000 damage, at relatively close range, just to give you an idea of just how much he did. 17 hits received, 4 penetrations, 13 did not penetrate. That is not the sort of thing you can expect from this armor in general. He did get a little bit lucky with a couple of the shots, and that E-25 at the end really just flubbed a lot of his shots. 1,635 damage blocked by his armor nonetheless. 8 enemy vehicles spotted, 13 vehicles damaged. There were only 2 guys on the enemy team Sumgrass didn't shoot. 5 killed, 1,452 assistance damage into the bargain, travelled 2 kilometers, and with a premium account made a profit. Bearing in mind he did have to fire some APCR rounds because he ran out of armor piercing, and the armor piercing ammo on this tank is quite expensive anyway, and he was using premium consumables, but still made a profit of 125,000 credits, which is a lot. Would have been 62,000 with a standard account, and all of that in 8 minutes 35 seconds. Gosh. When you factor in the premium account bonus, then Sumgrass received 2,997 experience, plus another 300 bonus because it's a premium tank, plus in total 149 free experience. Quite a nice amount of XP, especially when you consider there was no ×2 for the first win of the day or anything like that. So a very, very nice result for Sumgrass there. So there we have it. Video with a couple of games from British premium medium tanks. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, by all means feel free to catch some of my other videos and or subscribe to my channel. And don't forget, if you've got your own games you would like me to take a look at, upload them to whatreplays.com and send me the link to that replay in a PM on YouTube and I'll take a look. And I wish you very, very happy hunting on that battlefield. Ciao, ciao.